War drones over army bases. Whoop you. A restaurant robot loses it in the worst way possible. And don't mess with a chihuahua. Welcome to the Jay Sheldon Show. It's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, Thursday is here. It is upon us. And yes, as our thumbnail said, we are also going to cover going back to the moon. Man, it has been a long time. I've often wondered why we never went back. Good morning, Danny. Great to see you in the chat. Hello to all of our new viewers and subscribers. We're live on YouTube and Rumble. You can find us on both places, and you can hear our podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, all the podcast platforms. Just search out the Jay Sheldon Show. You'll find us there and give us a follow and a subscribe. We appreciate that. A whole bunch. All right. Well, space stuff. Space stuff is cool. I remember being in grammar school, which in Cornwall, Connecticut, went from kindergarten through 8th grade. We didn't have a middle school. It was all grammar school. Anyway, schoolroom technology was basically printed on paper and included in a thing called a book. I know. Our entire school would crowd into the gym, which also was the stage area and, multifunctional kind of thing, basketball court. And the principal would wheel in a television, the only one in the entire building. We could watch Neil Armstrong step off the Apollo 11 lander, that famous giant leap for mankind. Now, bear in mind, they went to the moon with 1960s technology. So imagine going into space in a 1966 Rambler. My dad actually owned one. You have a pretty good idea as to what things were like back then. Now, we have not been back since 1972. But that is changing. NASA's Artemis cleared the Artemis 2 rocket for an April launch with 4 astronauts on board to do a lunar flyby. They're not landing on the moon. They're just doing a flyby. I know. They cleared the moon rocket Thursday for an April launch with 4 astronauts completing the latest rounds of repairs. 322-foot, 98-meter rocket roll out of the hangar and back to the pad next week at Florida's Kennedy Space Center. That's very cool. Leading to a launch attempt which could come as early as the 1st of April. That'll mark humanity's first trip to the moon in more than 50 years. Can you believe it? Artemis 2 crew should have blasted off on a lunar fly-around earlier this year, but there were fuel leaks, and we all know how dangerous that can be. NASA managed to plug the hydrogen fuel leaks at the pad in February. Helium flow issue forced the space agency to return the rocket to the vehicle assembly building for repairs, which bumped the entire mission to April next month. Space agency only 6 days at the beginning of April to launch, and if they don't hit that window, they're going to have to stand down until April 30th, sometime into early May. Ouch. Landings and even a possible permanent base on the moon are in the tentative planning stages. How cool is that? This flight, just a loop around Luna and a return. Now here's the thing. What the hell took so long? We've sent 2 men to the moon in 1969, allegedly. We kept sending men up there until the Apollo program ended back in 1972, which was the year I graduated from 8th grade and went to high school. That was the last man-moon mission carried out. Now, I'm 68 years old now. It was literally a lifetime ago, if you can imagine. This is given half a century to poke our thumbs in the eyes of countries like China and Russia, where they claim to have some great technological breakthroughs, which never quite seem to materialize. And we can twit them with, yeah, let us know when you land 2 dudes on the moon and bring them home safely. Of course, there are going to be voices arguing that we should not be spending money on this. I get it, I really do, but I mean, holy cow. We're the United States of America. We're the big guys. We do hard things, and for the most part, we do them first. Otherwise, what's the point? So yes, send people to the moon. It's better use of taxpayer money than paying for some transgender awareness teaching kids in Oman. You think? For crying out loud, it's been over 50 years, folks. Let's make it happen. Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, they've all got their eyes on the skies as well. Planned missions to the moon and Mars, both are in the planning stages. And the good thing about those programs are they're privately funded. Yeah, Elon and Jeffy are paying for those projects themselves. Interesting time to be a space fan. So hopefully, with luck, beginning of next month, just a couple of weeks away, 4 astronauts gonna take off and head back into space with their eye and their target being the moon. How about that? Some people, says Danny in the chat, think we haven't been at all. I know Haley from Bongino Report believes we've never been there. Good conspiracy debate. It is indeed. It's been going on forever that Kubrick shot it all on a sound stage or a set they had made in the desert and all that. There is a lot of pretty valid arguments to be made about why scientifically we couldn't have gone to the moon. I usually read them. I follow along with all those different conspiracies, and some of them seem a bit possible. I really haven't gone down on one side or the other, but I love the debate anyway. So, indeed. All right, speaking of weird things in the sky, here we freaking go again. Come on, people. I'm telling you, you want a conspiracy theory? These people are up to something. I swear to God. More unidentified drones flying over an army base, and not just any army base. It's the base where Rubio and Hegseth live. Wednesday night, Washington Post reported U.S. officials detected unidentified drones above the Washington Army base where Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth live. Those officials still don't know where the drones came from. Post cites 3 sources familiar with the situation. Keep that in mind. U.S. officials detected unidentified drones above the Washington Army base where Rubio and Hegseth live. Not clear where they came from. Again, from Polymarket, unidentified drones reportedly observed over the Washington Army base. One of the sources, whom the newspaper says is a senior admin official, spoke on the condition, of course, of anonymity, don't they always, said the military is currently monitoring threats more closely because of the heightened alert level as the U.S. and Israel strike Iran. In this case, multiple drones spotted over Fort Leslie, McNair, on a single night in the last 10 days. Increased security is put up, the White House meeting to determine how to respond. Now, the drone sightings in Washington come as the U.S. issued a global security alert for overseas diplomatic posts, locked down several domestic bases because of threats. This week, Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in Jersey and MacDill Air Force Base in Florida raised their force protection level to Charlie, which is a designation that means the commander has intelligence indicating an attack or some kind of danger is possible. The only higher alert level, which is Delta, is when an attack has actually occurred or is hugely anticipated. They're now debating whether to relocate Hegseth and Rubio. They're still living at Fort McNair. Back in the fall, a lot of news outlets reported both men had moved to military bases along with Trump's Homeland Security advisor, Stephen Miller. Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem also had to move to a military base, all for safety reasons. But here we go again with these drones, and you know what? They're going to come out, they're going to say the same stupid damn thing before. Oh, the FAA says these are authorized assigned drones. And then no one in the press will say, authorized for what? What are they doing? Meanwhile, we're just going to keep cranking out the conspiracy theories, so you just keep feeding us bullshit, and we're going to keep on complaining and just figuring out exactly what went on. If you won't tell us, we're going to make it up, and I promise it'll be worse than what the truth probably is. What is the problem, U.S. government? Why can you not just be honest? You treat us like we're all a bunch of little 3-year-olds, for God's sakes. We're not. We are mature adults who can handle the truth. And that goes right up the chain to the UFO, UAP stories. Exactly, Danny. Seems like the technology we have available these days should be good enough to figure that out. It is. They know. They're just not telling because they don't think we can handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. Remember that? I promise you. I promise you that's the situation. FBI has been investigating Joe Kent, whom we told you about yesterday, for months over a classified leak. Mr. Kent walked out of a top U.S. intelligence role, accusing allies and insiders of dragging the country into the war with Iran. And now fresh reporting is suggesting that he's been under federal investigation for months. Former director of the National Counterterrorism Center didn't just resign quietly. Oh, no, they never do. He lit a match on the way out, publicly breaking with the admin and accusing key players of pushing the U.S. into a conflict he said never should have happened. In his resignation, Kent made it clear this was not about a policy disagreement. It was about a fundamental break over war. Quote, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no immediate threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, that alone would have been enough to shake Washington up quite a bit. Sitting intelligence chief with the NCTC accusing foreign allies, domestic political actors of driving U.S. military action. That is not exactly routine dissent, if you know what I mean. It's a direct shot at the credibility of the intelligence community and the whole policy apparatus that he was a big part of. And Kent did not stop there. In a formal letter, he escalated the accusation, arguing the president himself has been misled in the lead up to the conflict. High-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your American First platform to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat. This was a lie. That's directly from his letter. That claim now colliding with something a lot more serious. According to the senator, according to the senator, first reporting on the investigation, federal authorities examining Kent over potential authorized disclosure tied to sensitive intelligence. Investigation predates Kent's resignation. It's been apparently going on for months. The investigation into former National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent focused on allegations that he improperly shared classified information. Again, are they just throwing mud to make this guy who's taking a very strong stand, and that includes being against Israel, which, around here, we're not allowed to do that. Oh, no, you cannot have any, you're anti-Semite, fill in the blank. Oh, hands off, no touching. Don't even mention it. 4 people with direct knowledge of this probe described the investigation as ongoing. Probe's already underway well before Kent ever resigned. Inside the admin, reaction to Kent's resignation has been rather blunt. Trump signaled very little sympathy for Kent's leaving, framing it as a net positive as the fallout began to build. Officials argued that Kent's claims mischaracterized both the intelligence picture and the policy decisions that led to the conflict, dismissing his accusations as inaccurate and politically loaded. From one side, from another side. Top counterterrorism official resigns, accuses the system misleading the country into war. In the middle of it all, a report that he is under investigation by the FBI of alleged leaks of classified information. And on and on and on, here we go, blah, blah, until your brain just gets completely scrambled. And so everybody just pretty much shuts down, doesn't think about it anymore. And it's back to how you're going to pay the light bill. Important things. Nutsy crazy. Hey, the sheriff in Arizona who is overseeing the Guthrie abduction. Again, we haven't talked about that much lately because it's just nothing to talk about. It's still going on. But that sheriff is looking to possibly have to face a recall election. Sheriffs, for the most part in this country, are elected. Most Americans before February 1st had little to no awareness of Pima County, Arizona, which was a part of the state that borders Mexico. Second largest city in Arizona, by the way. Tucson's in Pima County. During its first days of February, the whole country became very familiar with the tale of one of their residents in particular, Nancy Guthrie. Recent days, the tale has taken a political turn, not related to the alleged abduction case. But in case you have somehow missed the biggest human interest true crime story of 2026, there's been a bunch of stories over the last month on Guthrie. 84-year-old mom, grandma, including the early missive on February 2nd, when Mrs. Guthrie, who is NBC News Today host Savannah Guthrie's mom, did not show up for Sunday church. A missing persons report was filed, reportedly by a concerned family member. She did not leave on her own. We know that. Later in the day, Nanos revealed an even more chilling detail. saying he believed that Mrs. Guthrie was kidnapped while she was asleep in her bed. Well, the Pima County Sheriff later called out for a rather odd stunt he reportedly pulled by refusing to allow the feds to handle the processing of very critical evidence collected at the scene at their renowned Quantico facilities. They wanted to take it back for analysis. Sheriff wouldn't let him. Red State reporting about the joint efforts from federal and local investigators led to the search of a Tucson home, a vehicle being taken away by police. Authorities detained at least 4 people while the home was searched by SWAT. News Nation's Brian Entin on the scene when a mixture of local and federal authorities arrived. Eventually, he was told to exit the perimeter, but reported that none of the law enforcement had left at that point. There have been some rather pointed questions about Sheriff Nanos' time while he was working at the El Paso Police Department. Some factual weirdness in entries in his official resume. But things have taken a little bit of a weird turn, as they might, for the worse, politically speaking. Sheriff Nanos in the form of a possible recall effort. Now, the local TV, KOLD in Tucson, has confirmed reports of the recall with the Pima County Elections Department, according to the station's evening news anchor Mary Coleman. A shared confirmation on an X post said, "We have confirmed that the Pima County Elections Department that a recall effort's been launched for Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, filed on March 12th. Ouch. Sheriff Nanos comments saying, "We're aware of the recall and it's the right of the people. We'll always honor the will of the people, and that's what makes democracy." Yes, democracy is on the line, folks. Anyway, the story's developing. He is facing a possible recall election. So we'll keep an eye on it, see what happens. It doesn't look very good for the old sheriff. What else is going on? Oh. Oh, man. For a Thursday, this is just a fat, pissy bucket of bad news. But there you go, a typical Thursday. Senator Bill Cassidy, who will forevermore be known as a complete freaking idiot, is defending Medicare scammers over America's seniors. You want to see a picture? There he is. Remember that face? He is an absolute scum. To prevent medical providers who've been abusing the system from losing their gravy train, that idiot, Bill Cassidy, would have seniors paying about $132 more every single year. The examples of waste and fraud and abuse in the federal government, federal health programs, it's too many to even mention. We would be here till next Wednesday. Why do they persist? Well, because some people in Washington seem to insist on defending the scammers. Among the defenders, none other than the moron Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican of all things, from Louisiana. Oh yeah, we bet his pockets are deeply lined. Last year, to rein in skin substitutes, a major source of abuse within the Medicare program, Cassidy introduced legislation that would let the scammers continue to profit. As the incumbent senator struggles to get traction in his re-election bid, Louisiana senators should know how Cassidy attempted to keep this scam going and hike their Medicaid premiums in the process. New York Times did an investigation and explained how this skin substitute abuse stemmed from two factors. Medicare's provided coverage of wound care in patients' homes since 2020. And second, the federal government would reimburse the full price of any new skin substitute during its first 6 months on the market, and it doesn't matter how high the cost is. It does not take a rocket science to figure out the results. Companies introducing new skin substitute products, a lot of cases amounted to not much more than a glorified Band-Aid. And profit they did. Spending on skin substitutes shot from $256 million in 2021 to an estimated $15.4 billion last year. In one case, a patient reportedly received $14 million in skin substitutes in 1 year. In other words, a series of skin substitute grafts culminating in the patient developing an infection and ultimately dying of sepsis. And Cassidy continues to stand up for the scammers. He proposed a bill that would set a price more than 5 times as high as the Trump admin's plan. His legislation's got a whole bunch of questionable provisions which would just perpetrate throughout the skin substitute scam. Unbelievable. The bottom line, Cassidy's giveaways to scammers would hit the bottom line of not only taxpayers, but also seniors who are paying about a quarter of Medicare spending on skin substitutes via their monthly Part B outpatient premiums. Think about that for a moment. To prevent medical providers who've been abusing the system from losing their gravy train, Bill Cassidy would have seniors in Louisiana and across this whole country paying about $132 more per year, about $11 a month. Yet another reason why the people of Louisiana simply literally cannot afford another term from this Cassidy moron in the Senate. This is absolutely insane. Louisiana, get off your ass, vote this guy out. Ridiculous. Absolutely insane. Miko, stop it. Go lay down. Sorry. Had to do a little doggy discipline. Oh, man. What else we got going on? All right, time to lighten the mood a little bit. Before we do that, though, how about that? That is a cup of the best coffee on the planet. And of course, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Blackout coffee. Yeah, stay awake, stay woke, get the best coffee you can possibly get. Blackout Coffee, which is an American company. It is owned and operated right here in America. They grow the best beans using local farmers and local co-ops, American farmers. These beans, they only pick the premium ones, which is why the flavor is so fantastic. They roast your beans only after you order and ship them out within 24 to 48 hours. So you've got fresh roasted coffee right at your doorstep. If you don't have a way to grind the beans, that's okay. Most of their best-selling roasts have ground. You can now get your beans ground as opposed to just the whole roasted beans. Set yourself up a coffee subscription, which is a brilliant idea. All their flavored combinations are absolutely insane. Cinnamon French toast, blueberry crumble, amazing. Check it out. These 5-star reviews are just above and beyond. It is simply the best. Try a single bag, won't you? Give it a shot. Go to the link in our show notes. It's down there in our show notes, right down there. Click more, and then that will go down. You'll see Blackout Coffee. Use that link. Use the code J20, JAY20 at checkout, and you will get 20% off your first order. Try a bag. You'll be back for more, I'm sure of it. Teas, hot cocos, got all that, and every one just as delicious as the last. All the great blends, coffee pods, instant cold brew, it's all there. Blackout Coffee. Use the link in our show notes. And thank you, Blackout Coffee, John and the gang, for helping to support the show. Appreciate it. All right. This may be the story that you've been waiting ever since you first heard about robots walking amongst us here in the real world. According to the techie site Futurism, a robot in California turned on humans, somewhat. And nobody knew what to do about it at first. Now, this is a crazy story. A humanoid robot was working in a Haidilao hot pot restaurant in San Jose, California. Apparently, it lost control of itself and started intimidating and scaring customers. I got video coming up. Had to be restrained by restaurant staffers, and the robot had been tasked with performing a Disney-themed dance routine to entertain the patrons. That did not quite work out the way they expected when the robot decided to malfunction. What? Did you see them struggling with this thing? And nobody could figure out how to turn it off. According to the report, no actual humans were injured as a result of the malfunction. But the fact that it happened raises a whole lot of questions. If you watch the video again, you can see the human staffers on the site had no idea how to contain this robot, who was nearly as big as they were. Once they grabbed a hold of the collar, started to restrain it, they didn't know how to shut it off or power it down. No big red button on the top that said on and off. You could see the woman playing with her phone. Maybe there was some sort of an app they were using. That wasn't apparently working either. Now, but what's scary to me isn't precisely what happened here, but rather the potential that the next time something like this happens, it doesn't involve a cute little dancing robot that a waitress can restrain or hold back the collar of. It's not just hard to imagine that a machine that men or even teams of men can't restrain or even get close to, once it starts to malfunction and create a bit of chaos. Some of these robots, in some cases, are armed. Robots in warehouses, factory floors, even in hospital settings. They're working independently on their own. What happens, like this case, which thankfully was a big nothing burger, Still weird. What happens when that happens on some of these robots in hospitals? The robot was smashing plates, wrecking tabletops, sending chopsticks flying. The irony of this situation pretty obvious. The robots wore an orange apron featuring a graphic that reads, "I'm good." Perfectly added to the chaotic scene. The graphic also included an image of Nick Wilde from Disney's Zootopia. It took 3 restaurant staffers to take control of this robot, the whole while trying to duck out of the way of its flying arms. A good deal of trust we are placing in these machines. The people who make them, software that runs them, people behind the software that run them, and we almost assume nothing will ever go wrong. But it does. You can have machines, and they exist right now, that could do a hell of a lot more damage than some dancing robot in a restaurant smashing a few plates and throwing chopsticks around. A lot more even than a single human could do. And if you can't get to that off button, which in a lot of cases doesn't exist, you're in some serious trouble. If you see a deer crossing sign, it means that in that spot, at least 3 times before, a vehicle had to have hit and killed a deer. That's when they finally put up a sign. It's a crude formula for how often you see these signs and when they actually put them up. But that kind of methodology, when you see stories about technology losing control, waiting until after the fact ain't the way to do it, folks. Not putting them out there until they are 100% tested and safe and incapable of malfunctioning, which I doubt they ever will be, is certainly the way to go. Insane. Danny, I had a conversation with my little Jack not long ago about AI and robots taking over the world. He said he'd just dump water on them. Not a bad idea for a 6-year-old. And you know, that's funny, but it's actually quite true. In a lot of cases, these robots were not designed to be waterproof, and they're full of electronics. And if you indeed, as little Jack said, just pour a bucket of water on them like the Wicked Witch of the West, a lot of times that will stop them. Keep that in mind if you have a robot in your house. Keep a bucket of water handy. Oh, man. Okay. I got one more. We're going to shut things down a little early here on a Thursday, but this is a classic. Yes, I know it's AI. I'm fully aware of that, but it is too funny not to share. I'll tell you why. I had a Chihuahua. I've told you this story before. Lenny Alonzo, dear friend of mine in the sheriff's department, he raised and sold Chihuahuas, and he had a litter, and one of the pups was the runt of the litter. And if you don't know, runt of a litter is usually substantially smaller. Sadly, they very seldom don't make it in the first few days or weeks of life. But this little girl we called Sisi, S-I-S-I, she was a holy terror, and she was the runt. So she was not just a Chihuahua. She was extremely small, extra like a little rat. Anyway, she was the love of our lives, and she ran the house. No doubt about it. This little girl. We also had a couple of other dogs at that time, but she was in charge. She was a tenth of the size of the other dogs. Didn't matter. Did not matter. She would not let me in bed sometimes. When I'd go to bed, she'd sit there and growl. "Arr, arr." And she would bite. She would absolutely bite. She was a holy terror. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this piece of video footage might even be Cece in another life. Cece, by the way, has since passed on, sadly. But this is simply entitled, Don't Mess with a Chihuahua. Okay, look. Yes, I know it's AI, but it's funny as hell.
Okay. All right, Pee-Pee, just a little pinch. Won't take a second. Whoa. Okay, easy.
Okay, one more, please.
All right, Pee-Pee, just a little pinch. Won't take a second. Whoa. Okay, easy, easy.
Yes, you don't mess with a Chihuahua. That's funny. All right. Don't mess with a Chihuahua. Love you, Cece. That's going to do it, folks. Thank you so much for everything. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday edition. Check all the links down there for one of our sponsors. Make a purchase. Send us money on PayPal if you'd like. We really appreciate donations. Truly, they go a long way to helping to hang on a second. Helping to support the show and keep us doing what we do around here. Hang on, and I will get it for you in just a second. Copy. Bing. Bada boom. Where is my... Oh, I can't paste it there. Hold on. Hang on. Don't go away. Here we go. All right. I'm copying and pasting the link to that Chihuahua video. It is in the chat now. So there you go. All right, folks. Thanks so much. We'll see you again on tomorrow, Friday edition. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.